Hello. And what a day we just had. And what a day that's not even really over yet, as the trade is, what is the official term? Let me read it. The trade is officially an NHLPA issue. It is officially in dispute. What in the world is going on? How are we in a situation where the trade will happen and then it goes through and then we have a press conference an hour and a half later, which is fine. I'm not complaining about that. Like, I understand how that happened. It finally went through. And then now, what is it, 4 hours later, 3, it's like not even happening anymore. 2 hours later was the press conference. It's like the whole thing is wild. And here's the problem. Here's the thing. I actually think the Golden Knights are cheering for this to get turned around. The trade is horrible. Absolutely terrible in every way. I don't understand why now to make this trade. It makes no sense to me at all. And let me just explain kind of where I'm coming from on this. So the trade is Evgeny Dadonov and a second-round pick. And I'm well aware that the second-round pick is down the road. However, it's Dadonov and a second for an injured AHL quality player with an NHL contract worth $2.75 million and an LTIR player whose career is over that you have to pay, basically just have Foley pay for, which leads you to actually believe that this was probably a first-round pick or maybe 2 seconds if they had not taken on Kessler's money. And we're talking about whatever it, I don't even know exactly what it would be. 6 million divided by, 40 divided by 164, whatever it happens, whatever is how much it is, $1 million. And I'm not that worried about Bill Foley's money. It doesn't really bother me. And I don't think it even bothers him. But my point is, this trade proves the lack of worth that Evgeny Dadonov had. And what's amazing is that he's actually been worthwhile over the course of the past 2 weeks or so, 7 games, or I think he's got 5 goals in 7 games or something like that. Doesn't really matter now. I guess it might if they get him back, and I don't even know what that looks like. I'm not sure how that goes. And even if they do, it's been made very clear to everyone what the value of him coming off the Golden Knights books are. I would imagine that another team would probably look at that, one of the teams that's eliminated from the playoffs, and say, let's just do that deal ourselves if he's not on our no trade clause situation. Because for the most part, the team getting Evgeny Dadonov, they get him for the rest of the season, doesn't really make a difference. But next season, worst case scenario, he's horrible and you pay him out. And that's the end of that. Best case scenario is he's actually okay to decent to whatever. You hold half of his contract and send him away at the deadline. And we have Fleury 2.0 here. Times actually 8.0, 2 times 4, whatever. I don't know. The trade it's unbelievable to me. Okay, you said last week that we couldn't give Dadonov away. They didn't give Dadonov away. They paid to get Dadonov off the team. And not only did they pay to do it, they held $1.6 million of salary. You have to realize what happened here. John Moore is not no one. Is that even his name? John Moore? It's Moore. I know it's Moore. I don't even care. He's never going to play for the Golden Knights. They didn't even create the full $5 million. And not only did they not create the full $5 million for this season, they didn't create the full $5 million for next season. He has to be buried in the AHL next year too. Maybe they do the buyout and it's a little bit less next year, and then you're paying $700,000 the following year. What a mess! What an absolute mess this whole thing is. And again, how does it make you better this year? The answer is it doesn't. It opens up $3 million worth of cap space. Okay. That you will take. That may allow you to be in a position where maybe you can bring one extra player back. Say it's Stone is ready to go back, which right now cannot happen unless they put someone else on LTIR, which pretty much everybody that's there would need to miss about 5 more games. Not exactly ideal. Of course, it's possible that they might have it. But again, we're talking about the cap circumvention issue, which is if you have a player that is unhealthy, you put him on LTIR, he must come off LTIR the moment he's healthy. If you're doing that with a player that you were projecting to come back before, then you're cheating the cap. Can't do it. So the whole thing becomes even more of a cluster. You've created $3 million worth of cap space. It's 3.2 or whatever it happens to be. That is the only positive in this. However, if you're telling me I'm buying that amount of cap space for a second round pick, I'm like not thrilled about it. It's not great. Now, if you tell me that I'm buying that amount of cap space while also subtracting the 5th leading scorer on the team, one of the few guys who's actually been able to score recently, and a player that is in my power play, has played top line minutes, is basically a second liner at absolute worst on this team. Like, how is that better? And that's not even considering John Moore coming in, which is costing Foley even more money. Like, it's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable deal. Like, I thought Evgeny Dadonov was not worth much. I thought there was a chance they actually had to pay to get rid of him. I know we kind of throw that around in the past of like, yeah, I think it's actually going to cost them something to do it. When push has come to shove, in the past for the Golden Knights, that hasn't been the case. They haven't had to pay to get rid of Marc-Andre Fleury or Nate Schmidt or Paul Stastny or Cody Eakin or Ryan Reeves or any of these players. And in many of those cases, everybody except for Marc-Andre Fleury, they got something back. Now, it was minimal. It was minimal to a point where it's basically negligible across the board. I think there might have been a 3rd round pick in there somewhere. But for the most part, they were actually getting something back. So a player in Dadonov who is scoring a little bit. Now, it's not like he's lighting the world on fire. I think the eye test pretty much shows you this is not a player you want to be paying $5 million on your roster. Like, I think that's very clear. However, when you are a team like the Golden Knights, who it seems to me still believe that they're going to find a way to win this season. And the reason I believe that is A, what McCrimmon said today, basically saying we will get better with health. B, saying he expects Martinez and Leonard and Stone all to play again. I wish I had put the word regular in my question. My question was, do you think they're playing again in the season? And I should have said in the regular season. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. That's an error by me. He then answers it that it is a possibility. And then he says, yes, when I say it's a possibility, we mean it's going to happen. So that could potentially mean in the postseason. But either way, the fact that they did not sell in a big way, and I'll get into buying versus selling in a minute, the fact that they did not sell on this day proves that they do have some belief that this team can potentially still win, that they can still win the Stanley Cup. Now, I look around and I say the team on the ice has zero chance, like beyond belief, no chance. I don't know that they would win playoff series against more than about 8 teams in the league right now, and there's 32. And 8 might be high, but granted, that's not the team that's going to be on the ice. So when you start funneling players back in, and you get some of them back in, you don't need all of them. If you get half of the guys that were out today back in, or even 2/3 of the guys that are back in, they're a playoff team. But Colorado got much better. Minnesota got much better. Calgary got better. Florida got better. Tampa got better. Carolina got better. Like, all of these teams are getting better, and you aren't. Now, you will get healthy, and that makes you better. I'm not disputing that point at all. But do you truly believe that A, you will get fully healthy, and B, once you get there, if you're saying once, fine, once you get there, that you are suddenly going to stay there, everyone's going to gel, having never played together at all in a system that demands chemistry, And then you're going to be able to go through 4 different styles of game against different teams, and you're going to make it all the way to the end and win 16 playoff games. Oh, and your goaltending, which there are reports that are all over the place on the goaltending, that's going to hold up. He's been injured like 4 times. But, I mean, he talked to me. I'm fairly confident he does not have a broken kneecap. I don't necessarily know about the arm. It certainly didn't look like he had a massive problem with the arm. It didn't look like anything was wrong with him to me. But he's also sitting in the press box and the game was starting in a minute. Either way, I can tell you based on what he demonstrated to me, I don't think he has a broken kneecap. That's the simplest way that I can put this. But either way, you have to have unbelievable optimism, like ridiculous optimism. And I'm somebody who can understand ridiculous optimism. I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan. I had ridiculous optimism for 18 fucking years. Like, I understand what it's like. This team, there's no reason to have it. There isn't. And so then to say we need this $3 million of cap space now, we have to have it now. We can't have it only next season. Because think about this. In buying today or selling or whatever you're calling this, I'm calling it buying. I think they bought cap space at this deadline and they did it for a massive price. Nonetheless, making the move you make today means that other team is taking the amount off of you for this rest of this season and all of next season. That is more valuable than just taking it off of your cap next season. So that indicates that there is still a belief that this team can win. Otherwise, you would have sold off players. You would have sold off a Janmark, a Smith, a Brissois, something that cannot help you necessarily next year, that can make you better down the road, gaining assets into your team. By the way, this Periscope and all Periscopes are brought to you by Conler & Associates CPAs. Tax day is coming up, so you need to make sure that you go to conlercpa.com and hook up with them to get all of your tax questions asked. Multiple people have already done it, told them that SinBin sent them. You get a free consultation. They'll help you out in a big way. They are fantastic over there. KONDLERCPA.com. Do that. Fantastic. Please take advantage of that. A number of people have told me this is what you wanted. This is what you were calling for. This is not at all what I was calling for. And I must have not been clear enough for what I was calling for. How does this team get better now or next year? Just tweeted the trade is officially gone through. Is that official? Let me pull that up. Elliot Friedman is what's being said in the chat. Hang on. The trade is now officially in dispute. I don't have anything saying it went through. I don't know where that's coming from. If anyone can find that, please tell me. But again, I think it's better off if it doesn't. For this season, the Golden Knights got worse. Plain and simply. Because they took away a player that was usable. Oh, just tweeted out there's an issue. Well, yeah, that's a completely opposite. Sorry, Jason. Whatever. You have a player that is usable right now. He is scoring. He's not amazing. He's not the best player on the team. None of that. However, if they had a fully healthy roster, Evgeny Dadonov's on the team. Now, they can't maybe have a full roster, but you're gaining $3 million. It's not like they gained 7 or 9 or 11 or something like that. Like, had they traded Evgeny Dadonov for a player that was making $1 million, and then they bought that off twice, and they actually saved $4.7 million, or even more if they did it multiple times, all of this. If all of that happened, then maybe they get a little bit better this season. But for now, you don't get better this season. You buy $3 million of cap space for 18 more games, in which case I don't even know how you're going to utilize that, because how are you ever going to have a healthy enough team to utilize that $3.5 million that you needed the extra 3.5? I don't see that being possible. Next season, you bought off the $3.5 million, but you sold a second round pick to do it. And like, yes, a second round pick in 2024 is probably going to turn into a player that is not usable down the road. However, it could turn into purchasing another player that can help your team, or buying a player and then buying off even more salary. The second round pick is simply currency, NHL currency. They gave it away. And then could go even further back. The Golden Knights sold Marc-Andre Fleury for absolutely nothing because they were in cap hell. They then turned around and bought Evgeny Dadonov, who played 60-something games, scored 15 goals, and was basically tanked his value to a level that you had to trade a portion of his contract, not even the whole contract, away, and a second-round pick to get someone else to take it, and you do it in your division, making someone else better for the rest of this season. They got better because Evgeny Dadonov's better than their players. I don't even know if we played Anaheim or not. Doesn't even matter. And you gave them a second-round pick. Then the other amount of money that they got from the Fleury deal, they gave to Laurent Brossoit, who just got beat out by Logan Thompson, who was in the system prior to the deal. He could have been the backup all season. Like, what is going on here? The mismanagement of the assets has been astounding. Absolutely astounding. That you can have this type of thing. The Tatar deal looks incredible next to this. It's unreal. They traded Marc-Andre Fleury and Evgeny Dadonov and Nick Holden and a second-round pick, and they got back 60 games of Evgeny Dadonov that are in the regular season, and Laurent Brossoit, who is a backup to the AHL goalie of the year, so basically not even the best AHL goalie, and they had to take on a player who is actively concussed and has a $2.7 million cap hit. How in the world did that happen? How? And you can sit there and say, yes, they got Jack Eichel. They paid a massive price for Jack Eichel, even before solving their cap. And we talked about this over and over and over again, that the ripple effect on the Eichel deal is not going to stop. It's not even close to there yet still. They still have to do things to make that work. It's an absolute mess. And that's not even considering the fact that the guy has a no-trade clause, had the team you traded him on to, and you still did it. I don't even know if that's the Golden Knights' fault. It probably isn't. It doesn't even make a difference to me. Whatever. That's the league's issue. If it goes through, it goes through. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and they're probably going to have to send the same thing out. It just shows where this team is in regards to the management of their assets. They are constantly giving things away for nothing and buying players at their peak. And then when their season has disintegrated in front of their faces to a point where you get blasted against playoff teams, and you barely beat teams that aren't very good playoff teams. Now, I should consider they did just beat the Kings, who were as banged up as them, but it's a playoff team, and they did play a very good game against Florida. However, for the past 3 months, it's been a majority of playoff team equals loss, non-playoff team equals maybe a decent game, but probably also a loss, like a 50-50 or some situation. That's where you're at. And you can't even recognize that this is a situation where you need to sell. You have to sell. You had to harvest picks out of this. And in the end, they actually bought. They gave up a second-round pick in the end, and they took on a player that's not even helpful. They did absolutely nothing to help their team this year. They did absolutely nothing to help their team next year. Now, if you want to link it to a prior trade, fine. And we will start doing that in the future. But in today, just today, when you pass the deadline today, the Golden Knights would have absolutely been better doing absolutely nothing. Just do nothing. Sit there and do nothing. That was better than this. Now, they might end up getting away with that because this whole trade might get flipped around. They might get him back. I don't know. We'll see. And that's one of the reasons why I'm on here by myself today. We were going to have Jason to kind of do a podcast about the whole thing, but it's awfully difficult to ramble on for 2 hours about a situation that we don't even know if it's going to hold. We'll see. And again, if you're a Golden Knights fan, I think you should be rooting for the deal to go back. I think you should be rooting for Evgeny Dadonov to be in the roster. And if it goes back, I think we want to put this last game under protest because we would have had Evgeny Dadonov playing in this game. So whatever. Like, the whole thing just stinks. Again. And it's happened over and over and over again. And it's been happening for basically since Mark Stone deal. From every moment. It's like, how many times can you sell pieces for nothing? It's happened time and time and time again. And beyond that, they had to add a sweetener to the deal to get Leonard to be at less amount that season. They had to add a sweetener to get Janmark to be at his situation last year. I think they actually added a sweetener to make sure that they could get Evgeny Dadonov by sending Holden away. Wouldn't Holden have been nice to be on this roster as well? Like, all of that. It's just crazy that this is where we are. And this deal, I don't understand why you would sign it. Why go through with that? If you're Foley, what does this do for me? How is this helpful? It's $3.5 million of cap space. What are we doing with it this season? Well, if everyone gets healthy, we might be able to squeeze out 4 to 10 regular season games where we're slightly healthier. Okay, all right. But what are we doing in advance? Well, Dadonov's not going to be there for the next few games. Certainly not the next 2. Both very tricky games on the road. Probably not for the Nashville game. We're not going to have any health by then. We may very well lose 3 games in a row, in which case we're probably going to have to win like 9 of our last 14. Okay, I'm not in love with that. What does it do for me next season? Well, we were kind of fucked against the cap already. This gives us a little bit of opportunity to not be as fucked against the cap next year. Okay, that's not horrible. What did we give up? Well, we gave up a second-round pick, which we've been doing a lot of. We also cost you $1 million out of your checkbook today to supplement a team that's not very good in a season that we may not get playoff revenue, to supplement a team next season that we're also going to have to do more cap stuff. And I know people are saying, like, what about Riley Smith? Well, they're still way over the cap. Like, they saved $3.5 million. They were like 12 over. When you consider what it may take to get Waugh, what it may take to get Haig, you know, they're over. And Thompson, all of a sudden, if Thompson keeps going on a run, he becomes a free agent fairly soon. What is he going to get? If Brossoit is 2.25, shouldn't Thompson be something similar? In which case, maybe you're $14 million over the cap. It just doesn't help you. It certainly hurt them in today's game. They would have been better off with Evgeny Dadonov. That's going to be the case tomorrow. If they get to a situation where they play games with healthy enough roster that $3.5 million saved them, then it gets a little better, and certainly the deal gets a little better inside of this season. But I just asked the question, and I will continue asking the question, why now? Why do this deal now? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, nothing's happening with Kessler other than, I guess, there is money. Every day that ticks away, there's a little bit more money that Foley would have to pay instead of the Ducks. 2, nothing's going to change with John Moore. He's got a concussion. He's not even coming to Las Vegas. I don't know what happens there. Did Thompson sign an extension that I missed? I don't remember that. Somebody else put that in there. I don't remember that. It very well could have happened. I don't remember that happening. It probably, in like, my mind's all over the fucking place today. I published the story of the after game as Vegas winning 5-1 was told, hey, you screwed that up. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I totally did. So I deleted it, republished it, and I got the score wrong again and said 2-0. It was actually 3-0. So it's very possible that things are slipping my mind today. It's been a wacky day. That's all I can say about that. And again, it is. Oh, okay. So he signed. All right, cool. He signed. So that's good. All right, good. Oh, yeah, that's right. He signed that. That nice one-way deal for the end. Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's a good deal. That's right. Now I do remember that. Good call. Okay, that's good. I like that deal for him. He's going to make himself a good amount of money. And then if he plays well, he's going to make himself a ton on the outside of it. Yeah, that's good. And that's right. He went on the same day as Amadio and McNabb. That's right. But just the entirety of this deadline and the focus that was necessary at this deadline should have been on winning next year's cup. This trade, in a way, potentially does help them do that. But doing it now at what can only be viewed as the absolute peak horrible situation for Dadonov, like, let's say you don't trade him just for the rest of the season. He's got 15 goals. He's at 5 in the last 7. Saravelli's saying the no trade was submitted on time. Well, that would be a problem. That would mean that maybe the deal is getting turned back around. In which case, that like I said, possibly good. But even then, it still shows what they are going to be willing to do. And I would imagine someone is going to take them up on that at some point. But let's say, for instance, it does get flipped over. If it does, he can only up his value. If he's absolutely atrocious for the remainder of the season, is it really going to take more than a second-round pick and $2.5 million coming back? Probably not. It's probably not. Like, I can't see it being a first-round pick and $3 million. Like, I just don't see that being the case. So there's no lesser situation that he can be in. I don't know what to say. And then as far as the game goes today, they're just listless. Like, that's what the offense looks like when they don't have a lot of their scoring players. And I understand what they're missing. Like, you're missing Max Pacioretty and Riley Smith. Like, those are huge offensive contributors. I get that. Like, that's not lost on me. However, you also were not generating anything. Like, where is Chandler Stevenson gone generating offense? Nick Waugh. Like, I heard such a bunch of talk about how great Brett Howden was recently, and it's like, really? I just don't see it. Like, yes, he stuck the puck in the goal every once in a while, but I just don't see Brett Howden being a difference maker. They have a lot of players down their list that simply cannot score. And it could be fine. I just don't think they're a horribly deep team. And even some of the players up the lineup, Carlson's not scoring all that much this year. You're not going to get a ton out of Nick Waugh. Like, these are guys that you're not going to get offense all that much out of. So it's just the whole thing. It's going to look like this. And then to rely so heavily on Alex Pietrangelo, and more so, where is Shea Theodore's offense? Like, I just don't see it being the same as it was before. And it's continued to be a problem. And in games like this, when you need it, you don't get it. Matt Dumba outscored both of them. That's a problem to me. If anybody has questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm not sure I'm going to have much by way of answers of what happens if the no trade clause was submitted in time, how that turns the deal around. I have absolutely no idea what would happen there. I'm not even sure there's precedent for it. I'm going to try and find NHL trades voided. I don't know of one. There certainly hasn't been one in the past 5 years. Theodore hasn't scored since January 21st. That's a problem. Foley isn't going to like being embarrassed by the trade flipping back. Yeah, it's possible. For me, it would be a benefit. The deal's terrible. The deal is in no way good. It does not help the Golden Knights at all. Like, at all. I guess it helps them in that they get rid of $3 million. But, like, if Dadonov's contract was $3 million, I don't think we'd be talking about this. I'm not even sure it would cost anything to get rid of Evgeny Dadonov if it was $3 million. It's very confusing. Very confusing. Yeah, this is interesting in that Vegas went from the quietest team at the deadline to all of a sudden that they're the only one talking. Does Vegas make the playoffs only to be eliminated in the first round? I mean, again, it's going to depend on health. I think they could have potentially bought and gotten themselves a ticket to the playoffs. Like they could have gone out and got Ricard Raquel. They could have gone out and got some of these other players and put themselves in a position where they could have made the playoffs. But like you said, only to be eliminated in the first round. Like right now, it looks like, well, let's see the score. I know it was tied before. It is still tied. Like you definitely don't want the Edmonton winning this game. Like it's looking like fourth place is probably where they're going to land. I guess it's possible the Kings fall out. That certainly could happen, in which case you can slip up into third. I don't know that they're beating Edmonton at this point, which is interesting because I basically said Edmonton had run away and then they came all the way back and whatever. But like, if you get in third place, you play Edmonton, I guess you got a shot there with some health. And as time goes on, you have a better chance. But still, like I'm not devoting more assets to this ridiculously overly optimistic fantasy land of this team winning. As long as this is the roster that's out there that they played today, if that's the roster, they're not making the playoffs. As they get more players in, it starts to look a little bit better with some of the teams they're playing. Chicago, a couple games against Seattle, 3 out of 4 against Vancouver. Like these are all winnable games, and Vancouver is not going to be that easy, but there's enough winnable games on the schedule that they should be able to find a way to get 10 more out of the rest of this season, or at least steal some of these points and the loser points along the way. So that's kind of how I look at it. Nonetheless, I don't think it makes a huge difference. Like, I guess it pays Foley back for taking on Ryan Kessler, but I don't particularly care about that. I want a Stanley Cup, and I just don't see it happening this season. Do you think this affects upper management's job stability even more? I really don't. I don't think this trade changes much of anything. I think it will frustrate Bill Foley, whatever they had done. If they do not make the playoffs, I think it will frustrate him even more if they are not massively successful next season. I do not expect there to be a change in the offseason. I would say the first opportunity for a change to actually come to either the head coach or any of the management would be sometime in the middle of next season when things aren't going well, if that is indeed the case. But I just don't see that happening at the point. Maybe read the contract and ask about the missing list. I mean, you make that sound like it's so obvious, but like they were on the clock. They took like 4 hours to get the trade through. So like, I don't know, like obviously something more is going on. I don't think it's as simple as what's being reported at the moment. I'll simply put it that way. I'm worried about Martinez. Any word? I would hate to see his career done. Yeah. I mean, I asked today and I put his name in there. It certainly seemed like the plan was that he's going to play again this year. I don't believe he went on this trip. He practiced a few days ago. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that one. It's very odd. I've heard a number of concerning things about equilibrium and all sorts of different stuff. And like, I don't have a great feel for if he's going to play again. Would it be better to buy out Dadonov after the season? Probably not. It's almost always better to do something else than buy a player out. Buying a player out should always be the absolute last resort. They would probably be paying something like $3 million next year, and then something even more. It'll add up to a lot if it ends up happening. You're selling cap space to save your picks at that point, which for this year may have been fine. For next year, not as great. I don't like the buyout option really ever. Smith resigned over the summer. I just don't know where the money's coming from. And I don't fully know what the situation is going to be on how much he's going to want. And then there's the injury that's going on now. And I don't know. I mean, you have to think they're going to want to keep him. I mean, you'd have to believe that. When is the Janmark extension? I thought the Janmark extension was a mistake in the first place. He hasn't been healthy enough to make me change my mind on that. I liked the Janmark trade if it was done in addition to something else massive last season. I thought they also needed a scorer. That didn't happen. So going back, I actually don't like the Janmark trade in it by itself. it was fine. It wasn't the end of the world, but I would have said, probably better off not doing that because you're wasting picks. Then they got him back. You feel a little bit better about it. I didn't particularly like the contract they signed. I thought it was too much for that type of a player. I don't think he's performed over the contract because he hasn't been in there for that much. So no, I would not probably re-sign Evgeny or Matthias Janmark. I would imagine you'd probably look like going into, find somebody else who can do the job, which they should have plenty of guys that can do that. I don't know that they do, but they should have those guys. Maybe go find another one that's cheaper. I don't know. They're pretty good at that. Do you think Smith's injury changed some of the deadline plans? I don't, actually. I think if Smith was a little healthy, like if Smith was on the ice, I still don't think they would have traded him because I think they would have done it in the event that somebody wanted him or they wanted to do it. I don't believe Riley Smith is out for the remainder of the season. If he is, then yes, that would change it, but I don't think that's actually happening. If it is, we've got a problem. Then the when healthy thing is completely dead again. So I don't think that looks good. But if he were to be coming back and you could tell a team, yeah, look, here's the information, he's going to come back. Like I think he actually could possibly become more valuable to a team as they could potentially stash him on LTIR and then buy something else. Like I think a team like Colorado would have loved to have had him. You basically get him for free because he can go straight on LTIR. So no, I don't. That's the simple part of that. Thoughts on Coughlin since he's first joined Vegas? I think he's been somewhat underwhelming. I think he needs to be better. The offensive game has been there to a degree at times. The defensive game is certainly still a work in progress. I think he needs to be better. I don't think he would be in this lineup if they were fully healthy. I do think he would be in NHL lineups around the league, though, but not necessarily this one. Any chance Robin Leonard gets traded in the offseason? I don't see that being the case. I think what he said today of like, we did not look at goalies at any point this season leads me to believe that this remains their plan moving forward. We'll see how that goes. That could easily change in a hurry. They have changed it. Was the Dadonov trade, were both Dadonov trades the worst that Vegas has done? I think coupling them together, yeah, probably. I think that it will be because you basically got 60 games of him and walked away, giving up a second-round pick, giving up Nick Holden, and taking on a player that you do not want, that you cannot use, that actually does count against your salary cap. It's not good. Did you see the Carlson interview? I did not. Shows great insight to how they're feeling. He almost seemed lifeless. I wouldn't read too much into William Karlsson's body language. It's not always outwardly excitable in interviews. He's a very low-key guy. He's a very soft-spoken in a way, but he's also like a wisecracking guy, and like he does that in a sarcastic way that is fun. I think he's very much not like me in that, just the way that he throws the jokes in and whatever. Like I wouldn't read too much into that. I'll simply put it there. Thanks again to Conler & Associates CPAs for sponsoring these Periscopes. If you need tax help, definitely do that. Coming up, ConlerCPA.com is the website. Coming up, we're planning on doing a podcast probably tomorrow. We do want to wait to see what's going on with the Dadonov situation. If they're going to get him back, if they're not, we don't know. We're going to wait to kind of see that because we do need to have that information moving forward. There's also a game tomorrow, so that muddies the water a little bit to us potentially doing that one late at night. That is possible. Wednesday, goalie interference is absolutely happening, so we'll see you on Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday night for that. Definitely talk about what's going on from there, and then from there, obviously, a bunch of different things coming up. Kevin Ioli's taking over the Twitter on Thursday as I'm not going to be at the game, so you can definitely look forward to that, and it should be fun. So we will see. Oh, here, yeah. What about Pouliot getting claimed off of waivers? I still can't believe it happened. Like, the guy didn't have an NHL contract, so any team could have signed him at any point the entire season. They didn't. And then he plays a few games for Vegas. They win. He was fine. I don't think he was good or bad. He was just in there. And then all of a sudden he's claimed. It was very odd to me. I don't think it makes a huge difference. I don't think Bahal or Hayes are much different than Pouliot, so I'm not all that concerned about that. That's all I've got for tonight. Thanks again for listening or watching or whatever you're doing, and we will talk to you soon.